Okay, so just before we switch to the main topic that I wanted to discuss with you today, um, just to answer Chirimbolo's answer really quickly, Chirimbolo asked if the War of the Triple Alliance between Argentina, Uruguay, and Brazil versus Paraguay could be construed as a genocide. And of course, this implies that the Genocide Convention would apply to something that existed like several uh, like a couple centuries ago. Um, and I guess there's a difference between saying this is something that Germany does a lot. Germany says, for example, that its genocide of the Herero and Nama in 1904 and 1908 is something like morally a genocide, but not legally a genocide because they cannot like backtrack the Genocide Convention to 1904 because it can't apply retroactively, which is a nifty trick to say, I will recognize that I did something bad, but you cannot sue for reparations. So it's a shitty thing to do, basically. But like going over that debate and presuming that we can have a definition of genocide and like either transplant it to the past or just have a moral definition. Let's say, let's just say Lemking's definition. I guess we would be. You can say, you could say that a third of the population of a country dying is significant enough to be talking about like, okay, maybe we should discuss about genocide. But and I don't know enough about the history of this war here, but I'm not sure that you could find the same kind of like language in Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay that you have now, for example, in Israel-Palestine, as to what were the objectives of the war. Like, can you infer from the conduct of that conflict that the objective was to destroy the Paraguayan population? That would be where I would draw my biggest questions. Like, can you find intent in this war? Maybe you can. I don't know. I don't know the documents. It is possible, but you would need to show me documents or actions or events that would lead you to believe that, yeah, this is more than just soldiers dying in a war. This is about destroying the population of Paraguay. It absolutely could. It just depends on whether you can infer that intent from the actions of Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Um, I guess an interesting question that is posed by a few authors, like there's this, let me see if I can find it here. It's called Never Meant to Survive by Joao Costa Vargas, who, if I'm not mistaken, is Brazilian. Um, he has a very interesting book. It's Never Meant to Survive, Genocide and Utopias in Black Diaspora Communities. So the point of this book is to argue that racism, like everyday systemic racism, is a slow-moving genocide. And I find that a more interesting question because you can bring back the same systemic racism that existed, for example, in Brazil, which is what he does. He does it with Rio de Janeiro, centuries to centuries. There's another interesting book called O Genocídio do Negro Brasileiro, so the genocide of the genocide of the Black Brazilian, by Abdias Nascimento, who makes a similar claim, but not technically speaking of genocide in the legal term, but more in the moral term. And so they argue that over the centuries, from the 1800s to today, there's been a slow-moving genocide of creating conditions of life to destroy black people in Brazil on purpose, with intent. It's just the intent is hidden behind the banality of everyday policy making. I find this to be the much more interesting thesis than was the War of the Triple Alliance a genocide. So I would really, really recommend you read these books. Hopefully you have access to your library because you can see the price here is not the best. But Never Meant to Survive is a fantastic book, and if you read Portuguese, because I'm not sure if this is available in English, O Genocídio do Negro Brasileiro is also um, um, really, really good. It's called, I guess, so the Genocide of the Black Brazilian, Process of a Masked Racism. So both of them make similar arguments that what's going on is that Jim Crow style politics is a genocide, which is something that I do actually believe as well. Jartov says, from that description, it's the same with Native Americans in the US. Yes, it is. But also Jim Crow, right, in the US. So I have an article coming up soon. I'm going to make a stream about it soon. But there's an article that I'm writing about the definition of genocide and how it's changed over time, and how under the original conception of Raphael Lemkin, and as per Lemkin himself, if you read his notes, lynching, Jim Crow, and race riots were a form of genocide. So in private, Lemkin made these same kinds of arguments as Abdias do Nascimento and João Costa Vargas in saying that racism is genocide. He just changed his views towards the 1950s when he needed to get the US to ratify the Genocide Convention. Then he changed his views. And he said, no, racism is not genocide. But that is, in my opinion, the vanguard of genocide, exploring the concept of genocide. Is systemic racism, can Jim Crow politics, can racial segregation, can apartheid be genocide? And not just an individual crime of racial segregation or of apartheid or of racism or whatever crime you want to call. Is it also a very slow moving genocide ever since the 1840s? Right. So that I find more interesting a claim than was the War of the Triple Alliance genocide because of the difficulty with intent. Whereas in the case of Black genocide, you can find very genocidal language coming from the people that were promoting racist policies and assimilation policies in Brazil and the United States. So yeah, food for thought. We can talk about this in more detail when my article comes out. It's already gone into production, so it should be out in a couple of weeks. Hasmonian says, I disagree with you about Kristallnacht being a genocide. So I don't think that Kristallnacht was a genocide, like the act of Kristallnacht being a genocide. I think that a genocide had already developed in 1930s Germany against Jewish people in Germany and beyond. And so I think that Kristallnacht was a genocidal act in the context of a genocide. If you I'm not saying that every single pogrom is a genocide. I am saying that pogrom in that context with that intent is a genocide. But I mean, we can disagree. That's fine. It's part of what we do. We disagree openly with people. Okay. Yeah, Hasmonian, but I don't think that genocide is only extermination. That's my point. I don't think that the Holocaust was a genocide only as of 1941. I think the Holocaust was a genocide since before. I think the intent of destroying what made the German Jewish community a German Jewish community was there already. It was not. If you are trying to destroy a group to refashion it into something that can't exist as a collectivity, and you do it with the intent of getting rid of these people because you conceive them as an obstacle, as a subclass or whatever, there is a bigger chance that I will find what you're doing a genocide. It doesn't mean that every single case of ethnic cleansing, every single expulsion is a genocide. I will need to see the specifics, but it does mean that, to me at least, that makes it very suspect of genocide. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like content like this and you would like to see more, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also come to one of my live streams or join my Discord server. It's really great that you're here because we're really trying to grow this community and turn it into a space where we can all come together to discuss about international law and international relations. So really thank you for your support. Until next time.